Hello there, my name is Doc Conrad, and this is my little preamble to the podcast that's a bit more updated than the last few episodes. Majority of the time I've just been stating everything, and copy and pasting and putting in other things, but I want to have things a little bit more casual. So, I'm going to do this a little bit more freeform. Bear with me. I want to say thank you to the character artist who's made a ton of the podcast set and every single commission so far that you've seen on YouTube. Doida, aka at DoidaFlower on Twitter, and at Doida on Instagram. They have been a wonderful guest. They've been on a previous episode of the podcast as well. It's so great to go and have them work with me for as long as they have. I'm super excited to work with them. The person who helped create the icon for this podcast is at Mellowscav, at MELOSCAV. They created the icon for this podcast. He has been a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine for quite a while, and he helped create the logo as well. Doida did the character art in the corner, which is going to change actually soon. It's going to be a little bit, but we'll go ahead and save that for a little bit later on, maybe in a future episode. And finally, I want to go ahead and say thank you to Misha, at Misha's Voice on Twitter, at SuckyByQueen on Instagram. She was an absolute wonderful guest to have, which you'll go ahead and hear later on in the episode. And we had a bit of fun getting to know each other better on this episode of the podcast. That should be everything. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Commissions Open, an interview podcast all about art in the digital age. Here you can hear the processes, stories, and lives of artists, voice actors, video creators, editors, musicians, and many other talented creators in the era of online work. I am your host, Doc Conrad, and today I have a very special guest who I have known on a semi-personal level, mostly just through mutual knowing each other. Misha, aka Misha's Voice on Twitter. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. I am super excited to be talking with you about all of this. I think that I'm glad that we decided to go ahead and connect a little bit ago, and I'm super thankful that I get to talk to you today.
I think that we've been friends on Facebook for almost 5 to 6 years at the least, and I think this is the first conversation we're having, and I think that's so interesting. The internet's so weird.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know, and see, I've just known your presence online for so long that I don't know how. I can't exactly remember how I met you or the reason why I
remember.
Met you. Huh?
I remember. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, go for it.
We both ran Homestuck fan pages.
Oh no.
And that's how we added each other.
Oh, no.
I was like, oh gosh, this person that knew me in my Homestuck fan page days is gonna interview me. But I guess you forgot.
I forgot about that bit. I just known that you have been an absolute joy to have in my timeline. So I'm not gonna go ahead and get rid of her. And she's great. So I had little to no idea, man. You saw me when I had on my Facebook pages, not even Facebook page, my personal profile, photos of Matuna as just, oh my god, that was who. Oh my god, you will bring that down to your grave, those memories, and I appreciate.
No. I actually I've met people. I love to hate on the Homestuck fandom, but so many of my friends that I made in those days remain some of my best friends to this day. So
Mm-hmm.
I look back on my Homestuck days, and it's both extreme cringe and extreme nostalgia, and I think that's my relationship with a lot of fandom in general.
I can agree with that 100%. And you probably realize that oh, he's sort of still in it because he has Zachary as his icon. So he's got I had the offshoot from those days. But this podcast isn't about reminiscing and realizing how awful childhood is. This podcast is all about you and all the work that you've done, the excellent work that you've done, and the work that I'm thankful to be able to bring to light to a hopefully wider audience.
Thank you.
You are a actress, a voice actress, and you are a cosplayer. And you told me before we started recording that you first started in theater. Is that correct?
Yeah, so when I was just a wee tiny tot, I guess I was about 14, I did my first community theater production, and that was a really rewarding experience for me. And due to like okay, I'm from Tennessee, so it's very difficult as a woman of color sometimes to get cast in plays, and I definitely had a lot of struggles with that as a child, but like my love for being on stage and like finding character really carried me through my youth. And like I think I've always been like someone who wants to bring characters to life. I've done all of the cringy fandom things. Like I did text-based role playing. I ran a Homestuck page.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it really started with theater, but it continues to influence every part of my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
I almost forgot to go ahead and mention your wonderful singing, which I'm guessing it really does help you with your ability to go ahead and work in theater, and you grew that from that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was in a musical in high school. I took private singing lessons because I always had like a quote unquote talent for that, and it's a skill that I've really been building up over more than 12 years now. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'd love to go ahead and I'd love for you to go ahead and talk a little bit more about like just go into like just from the rundown. Can you recall like what exactly you've worked on in the past up to this point, specifically inside of theater work? I'll get to more about
Yeah.
your voice acting work and also your cosplay in a bit, but I'd
Yeah,
love to hear
for
more about that.
sure. So, in theater, my first production, I was in The King and I when I was in high school, and I was wife number 14 in that. Yeah,
Gotta
it
say,
was
that's
yeah,
amazing. No.
it was a super impressive role. They put me in a really big pink dress, and I ran around like with my skirt above my head. Very fun times. And then I just due to like very complicated casting issues and like racial issues, I did not do theater for a long, long time until I was in university. I was in my second year of university, and I got cast as a cameo role in a British comedy play called One Man, Two Governors. And I was like, I the play called for like a woman to walk across the stage holding a sign to tell you where the scene was set. And
Hmm.
so I had no lines. I just held a sign that was like at the dock, and I would walk across the stage and look sexy, and that was my whole role. And I loved every minute of it, and I was like, I want to do more of this. And then that following fall, that would have been in, oh gosh, 2017, I was cast in a play called The Ash Girl, at a company called Theatre Antigonish, which is a pretty prominent Canadian theater if you know like Canadian theater.
Hmm.
And I was Pride Fly in that. That play is it's basically the tale of Cinderella, but like with a twist, and the seven deadly sins are in it for reasons that I still couldn't tell you. And I was Pride, who was an evil fly. And working at that company, I realized that theater and acting was something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was having some struggles with where I was in school, and I just like really found myself again in theater. I was like, I was very depressed, frankly, and coming into the theater every day was the only thing that was getting me through my life at that point. And I realized that like this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. So that
Hmm.
spring, I transferred schools to the university I'm at now, Dalhousie University, and I switched my major to acting, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, what was
So
your, if you don't mind me asking, what was
yeah,
your major before you did acting, and what led you to that decision first before you decided to switch?
yeah. So I went through like a few majors at my previous university. I was an English major for a while because I always liked books. I majored in history for a while because I thought that it would be like a solid teaching job after I graduated. But for most of my time there, I majored in sociology. I
Hmm.
had a professor, and I did super, super well in his intro class, and I really connected to some of the readings. And he was like, "You should major in this," and I was like, "Okay."
Hmm.
I actually, one thing that does continue to stick with me from my time as a sociology major is a paper by Irving Goffman called The Theory of Dramaturgy, which actually I feel like also inspired me to be an actor. Um, it's a piece about how all social interaction, every time we're talking to somebody, it's performance.
Mm.
That, like, as we go through our daily lives, we pick costumes, we choose how we walk and how we speak to people, and that in a way is playing a character. And I
Yes.
think that that like really resonates with me. And I just really loved that. And that thought has really carried me forward into acting as well. And I recommend it to everybody. Please read Goffman's A Theory of Dramaturgy. It's so good.
That's an interesting thing to put up, because it's something that like subconsciously happens day to day. Like, for instance, involved with like this podcast, I put on more of a professional front, of course, because I want to go ahead and ensure that like you not only feel comfortable and willing to answer the questions that I give, but you're also like it's something that I want to show to everyone. But it's close. It's never really as close as to like who I actually am, and it's never exactly going to be that.
Mhm.
And it's an interesting like sort of feeling that a lot of people, I'm guessing, like don't even really think about. Just go throughout their day of like, putting up a front, quote unquote, is probably one of the most human things possible. It's the
Mhm.
amount that you deviate from yourself is what determines what is quote unquote real or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
sorry, I
you
interrupted
know,
you.
you go. I was
um,
about to start rambling because I didn't know what else to say about it.
no, it's good. My favorite like kind of metaphor example of this theory in action is like how we perform on a first date. I
Ooh.
think that's like the perfect like because the clothes you wear on a first date, the way that you like groom yourself, how you act and how you talk to your first date is like the ultimate performance as a person. And I think that like that's the perfect example of that sort of thing. But to realize that we're kind of always doing that, and in that way, like I think acting is really valuable because it can help us be more aware of that. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
big art thoughts.
No. I think that's an important thing to go ahead and like realize, and I'm guessing that it has helped improve the way that you not only present yourself, not only present yourself in like a professional setting, but also in the in the form of theater and your other work. But I want to go ahead and I'm sorry for going off a little bit
No, you're good.
on the tangent over there. What is it? After you switch majors, what is it?
Mhm.
What are some more things that you've done after that?
Yeah. So, once I switched majors, like I'm always doing scenes and stuff for class, but since then I've been in Dr. Faustus, and in that one I was a devil. I was
Hmm.
Helen of Troy, and I basically assistant stage managed that play, but that was more of a role that I kind of fell into. Like we needed somebody to help out backstage, and I was like, I'm not doing a lot. Let me just move everything. I Probably my favorite production that I've been in since I switched majors is I was in a play called Five Lesbians Eating a Quiche,
I
which
heard
was
your advertisements about that, and
yeah.
I'm like, I wish I could go see that. However, I do live down south in America, so I
Yeah,
can't do much.
that was actually directed by a classmate of mine. Her name is Emma Brown. I'm gonna like plug my classmates a little bit.
Oh, that's
But
fine.
working with her, she was so wonderful, and it's so nice to collaborate with people who are in my same level of training. That play is about quiche, lesbians, and the nuclear apocalypse.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's public domain now, or you could like find it somewhere. It's a very weird, funny play. I did a southern accent for that entire play, and it was wild.
Hmm.
Um, I have also been involved in writing a few plays. I guess when you write a play in collaboration, it's called devising, and I've devised two plays. I devised a play called Evil, which was an adaptation of our director's horror novel that she wrote when she was 9. And that one actually won the award for funniest joke at the Halifax Fringe Festival in 2018. Yeah. So that was really fun. And then this past semester, well, I guess just last month, I wrapped a play called Ephemera, which was devised by my classmates. And
Hmm.
that one was about interns who commit crimes.
I love
So
that.
I think that's my whole theater history. That's yeah.
Now, when coming up, when discussing yourself to multiple different people, I'm really ashamed that you don't state that you are a award-winning playwright. I think that you could you have not only the credibility and the backup to say that, but like that is one of the most like that is one of the most like bold openers I could possibly think of. And it's true, which is the best part, as opposed to being like a for like a school or for a school thing. No, it was you said it was all for like was like at least citywide, right? Like for how?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with theater, a fringe festival is what we call unjuried theater. So basically, in sometime in like the late 1800s, a bunch of guys in London were like, people won't let us put on our weird plays at real theater festivals, so we're gonna have theater in like coffee shops and in our mom's basements, and anybody could make a play and put it on at our fringe festival. And that's become like an international phenomena. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been involved in the one here in Halifax. And a few years ago, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, do you want to help write a play with me for Halifax Fringe?" And I was like, "Sure." So I don't self-identify as an award-winning playwright because I think five or six of us wrote that play together based on like Kayla's like 9-year-old scribbled handwriting. So yeah, it was a collaborative effort. So it wasn't just me who won the award or who
I,
wrote that play.
I understand it. However, this is more of just like a if you wanted to state this and you wanted to end. If you, it's a good punctual mark in your history just because of the award thing. But that's not what's most important. Of course it's not, because it's all about the collaborative process of making the art
Mhm.
that you've had, and that's what was made most important, and the pride you share within like working with all those people, and I'm guessing the cast as well, and
Mhm.
that's one of the most important things about theater. However, awards are still pretty freaking cool, I must say. Anyway, but so from there, that's pretty much you say that was like pretty much your history with acting. I want to go ahead and talk about the interim period between when you first had a little bit of taste of the play of being in a play in Tennessee, and what you had afterward in and what you did in the interim period before you got back into it in college.
Yeah. So I guess like really what happened to me was high school. I was in a lot
Same.
of extracurriculars. I was a marching band kid, and you cannot be a marching band kid and a theater kid. You can't do
Hmm.
both.
Hmm.
And I chose to be a marching band kid, and like I could still play the clarinet, so I guess I got something from that.
Yeah.
Um but I guess that was also where I really like began to discover like my passions for like anime and voice acting. I really like I feel so many voice actors kind of had the same story of like they learned their favorite actors in anime and like wanted to be like them and started to kind of like watch shows because of these actors and like learning learning to recognize voices and being so impressed by that and wanting to do that. And it did mostly start out as me like doing funny voices with my friends like, "Hey guys, you want to see what I can do? Ooh, that's snake!" And them hating me. Um
Oh, I agree. I
and I
agree.
think that like that eventually kind of spiraled. And once again, I think I'm going to credit the Homestuck fandom with me getting like into voice acting. That somebody, I don't even remember who, oh my god, was like, "Yeah, we're going to dub Homestuck. People audition to be like characters." And I'm like, "I can kind of act. I can do cool voices." And I just auditioned for every female character that I resonated with, which like is all the problematic ones. Like I love Vriska, I love Rose, I love Terezi, like I love all the bad Homestuck characters. But so I auditioned for everyone I could. I got cast as like 5 of them. The dub never happened, but like it was good practice. I loved to do it. It was fun.
Yeah.
And so I started doing more of those, and I think eventually I ended up making an account on beyondthevoiceactors.com and just auditioning for everything that appealed to me. None of them ever happened, but yeah. I guess like my first big like break into the voice acting community was one day. Um, Jared Ramen, I think his Twitter is like Geraldo VO or something. He messaged me on Beyond the Voice Actors like, "Hey, I am doing a web series and I'd love for you to audition for a character." And I was like, "Whoa, somebody's asking me to audition
Mm-hmm.
for them? They
Mm-hmm.
want me to?" And I said, "Yeah, sure I will." And then I ghosted him for a month because I was so like nervous and anxious about it. But eventually he emailed me again and he was like, "Hey, are you still recording for this character?" And I'm like, and then I think I did the audition in 5 minutes and sent it off like, "All right, it's done. It's done." And he was like, "Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. Your cast." And shortly after, that series also fell apart after I think a few episodes of being in production. But I continued to work with Jared, and he and another creator, Evan now, did a dub of the Lumine webtoon when webtoon dubs started to become really popular, and I was involved in that as several extras, and that really took off. And since then, I've been doing like some more professional work. A lot of like short films that aren't released, a lot of like other things, just trying to audition wherever I can and seeing what sticks.
Hmm. So you've pretty much like what I'm hearing is a story of is perseverance, especially from the very beginning of like auditioning for a lot of roles and being like wanting to go ahead and have it, but not exactly all of them working out initially, especially from the early stages. But I love that you've kept up with it a lot because I can definitely hear your talent, like by far. I've been able to notice like your talent for quite a while, and your ability to like grab a character and really make them has been like I'm guessing has helped a lot a bit from your acting experience as well, especially as of late. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I definitely think that you have you're definitely a very very talented actress, I must say, and voice
Thank
actress.
you. Thank you. Now I'm all blushing. Yeah, I feel like in general, my policy is that you have to be okay with failing and you just have to like try everything. You know, like you it's so hard to put yourself out there, but the more you do it, the more you get better at it. And you just constantly have to be putting yourself out there. And it's not always gonna work out, but when it does work out, it's so rewarding. I actually just wrapped up a gig that I can't talk about, but it's like wow, baby's first professional like in a studio gig, and it was like such a rewarding experience. And that was just from like sending off so many emails applying for things and so much like auditioning and auditioning and auditioning and like getting told no a lot. But um
Mm.
yeah, another classmate of mine, again, here's another tangent. Another classmate of mine said that as actors, like we're always auditioning and there's a number for every actor, and like you audition that many times, eventually you'll get a role. And some when you start out, that number is going to be like 100, 200, but the more you work, like eventually that number will shrink and you'll just get better at auditioning and getting parts.
Hmm. That,
Yeah.
that that definitely makes sense. I've heard of a I heard of a interesting statistic, which is if you have an 87% failure rate, you're doing excellent in the voice acting industry, especially
Yeah.
like with the amount of things you can audition for, the amount of people who are auditioning for these different roles, and the amount of people who are accepting different sort of actors or voice actors or voice actresses or actresses. There is like a high amount of like of like overturn rate for like failure. So I think that
Yeah.
your story of like continuously putting yourself out there and continuously pushing forward is great advice for nearly every single advice for nearly every single person who's listening who wants to go ahead and like audition for roles, especially because it's a way difference between there's a big difference between simply getting commissioned for the work that you do, and also and continuously pushing yourself out there to go ahead and apply for roles. It's a big difference and can sometimes be very draining, but I'm glad that you've made it work so well.
Yeah. Um I had a thought there and then I lost it. But yeah, sometimes it can get really overwhelming where I'm in school to like act and I'm still trying to like build up a career at the same time. Like it can be hard to juggle all those balls. I think I made a tweet yesterday and I was like, yeah, once I'm done with this play, I'll start auditioning again. And once I'm done with my midterms, I'll start auditioning again. And that cycle
Mm-hmm.
never quite ends. But every once in a while I like manage to like record 4 auditions in a day and send them off. And like that always feels good. I actually like I love auditioning. I love playing with characters even if I might not get cast as them. And finding the fun in that I think is also just so helpful that like it can be hard to be told no, but you have to find the fun in every part of the work.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. I can see that with that. Okay, so we talked a bit about your voice acting experience and your acting experience. I'd love to also go ahead and talk a bit about you being a singer because I realized that I was doing a little bit of like I did a little bit of sleeping on your like on your singing because it's not really as public for me, especially on your like on your Facebook. What
Yeah,
have you added? I never realized that like you had this this whole channel of you like dedicated to singing. And then I started hearing like, oh my goodness, like I was it was like a huge thing for me to go ahead and finally hear. because not only did I first get to go ahead and hear your voice really in like that manner. I heard a little bit from your like acting wise, but that was you like putting more of like putting on a little bit of a front of like acting in that regard. Of course, like you said, we're always acting. But anyway, but I got to go and hear your singing voice, and it was how do I put this? Mwah, chef's kiss, my friend. How long have you been doing that?
Um, this is like way, way deep. I think I'm one of those people that can say like I've been singing my entire life. I think I was like 3 or 4 when my mom realized that if she put on like a CD in the car, I would memorize it very, very quickly. And so she was like, because I would just like start singing along to like Billy Joel in the car when she put his CDs on, and she was like, oh. And so she started doing that deliberately, that she would play like music that she considered classics constantly in the car so that I would learn them and begin to feed them back to her. And so like and I think that like my first like formal singing experience was I auditioned for my elementary school choir. And I made that, and that was really fun, and like I just love to sing. And I did choir for several years until again I was in high school, and it was just like my high school had 2 choirs. It had like a freshman choir and like an advanced choir, which was audition only, and I auditioned for it several times, and I always got told no, and the reasons were always very like fishy. And one day somebody did tell me like, well, like the directors are racist, and I'm like, oh. And like it all made sense to me. And so like I dropped out of high school choir, and I started taking private lessons, which like I'm so privileged to have my parents my parents supported me in that. And I took private lessons for several years, and I was a competitive singer for a while, and I did really well. I got lots of good scores every year as a singer. I guess by the time I graduated, I'm an excellent ranked musical theater soprano in master grade 3, which is the highest grade you can get below the age of 18. And then I graduated and moved to Canada, and I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess the same time I got into voice acting, I realized that like I also if I was going to be a serious actor, I needed to keep singing. And my school, you can double major as a singing major and an acting major, but it's basically impossible. So I've started this YouTube channel to keep practicing that and to kind of sharpen my skills in that, and to learn how to combine like voice acting and singing, finding ways to express like character voice through song. And the reason you don't see that on my Facebook is because I really wanted to grow my audience for my YouTube channel organically outside of like the connections I've made through like cosplay and theater acting, that I really wanted. Like, I didn't want my followers on this channel to just be my friends.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, so I don't tend to post stuff like that on my Facebook, but I think I have almost 200 followers right now, which is nice considering I post, like, once every 6 months.
No, I can definitely see the merit in wanting to go ahead and, like, not only see, like, more of, like, a personal goal of, like, I don't just want, like, the people inside of my community or like my friends to just be the only people who like see this. I want to go ahead and you wanted to go ahead and grow your audience to a point where like people will go ahead and see it and listen to it and go love it based on your merit rather than like, oh, I have to support this person. And I remember you wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about like that sort of like that sort of different thing where you wanted to go ahead and you want to have a little bit of a talk about different communities and how you want them to go ahead and like reach out beyond just their own personal bubbles. Is that right? Hey, how's it going? My name is Conrad, aka Andrew, and this is the middle bit of the podcast. Hi. Yeah, this is the middle bit of the podcast where I tell you all about things that are going on involved with not only things involving the show, future things with it, but also where I go ahead and just shout things out and talk a little bit about my sponsors, which is crazy, I know. But I hope you're enjoying the episode with Misha so far. She was an absolute joy to have on, and I really loved our conversations. I really love getting to know somebody that I've known for a while from afar, but actually getting to talk to them has been great, and we've been good friends ever since the interview. So it's been really nice. First off, I want to give a huge shout out to my good friend Hugo, aka Shai Starfall. Now he runs a Twitch show called The Artfall. It is described by him as a casual interview slash game show with artists every single Tuesday. You can follow him right now on Twitter and on Twitch at Shai Starfall, and every Tuesday he interviews and does fun little challenges with different artists. He's had different guests on that I've wanted to get on, but like I didn't know if I should go and ask. Maybe I will. Maybe I will go and ask. And then we've actually already had some overlap with like different guests without even trying. Just like, hey, do you want to be on? And they said yes, and they said yes to both. So it's a really cool thing that we want to go ahead and do. I'm partnering up with him right now, and it's going to be really awesome. Hopefully, I'll be able to go ahead and incorporate some stuff with him in the future and work together on some things to help both of us grow. So you can follow his Twitch show, The Artfall, at Shai Starfall on Twitter and on Twitch. You can go ahead and follow him, and every Tuesday he'll have a new guest sometime. You know, he's got weird time zone things, but he's going to appear every single Tuesday with another guest that's coming on. The second thing on our list is, guys, we've got ourselves a sponsor. I want to ensure that sponsorships make sense for this podcast, and Buy Me a Coffee reached out to me, and to me, it made a ton of sense. BuyMeACoffee.com is a great way to accept support and offer extra stuff to your audience. There are more than 100,000 creators across 750 categories, and this podcast is actually on there right now. We'll talk a bit how you can support the show, but first, let's go and talk about how Buy Me a Coffee can benefit you. So let's take, for instance, that you are a commission-based artist. Buy Me a Coffee has a feature just for you. You could set up your BuyMeACoffee.com page to set up a place for art commissions with features such as placing maximum number of slots, setting prices, describing the amount you charge, and more. You can use their pre-filled art commissions template, or you can make your very own if you want to go and have a little bit of extra stuff with it. And if you are interested at all in this sort of thing, about having a place where you can place your art commissions and having a set slots with a maximum number of slots, you could set your own prices and you can have multiple versions of it, you could go to my link down below, either in the podcast description or in the YouTube video description. And if you click that link, you get $3 for a coffee for yourself, as well as I get a kickback of $3 from me. And I am currently on there as you can go to buymeacoffee.com/comsopenpodcast, or also it's also in the link below. Thank you once again to Buy Me a Coffee for this opportunity to work with you guys, and I'm thankful if you guys end up supporting the show and giving me anything extra. The last thing on my list is I actually want to go ahead and talk about some of the comments that I've been receiving, and I want to go ahead and give this an opportunity to give a shout out to some of those comments. There have been plenty of people who've been saying incredibly kind things involved with some of the episodes. The biggest one being Doida, the artist for this podcast. I loved her episode so much, and a lot of you guys seem to enjoy it a lot too. She is the most viewed on YouTube at over 1,000 views already, which is amazing to me. I had no idea that I would even get that many, to start with. Let's go ahead and see what some of these comments are. I'll go ahead and take one from here. Here we go. From Wake on YouTube. In all caps, whatever you do, do not stop the series. I love it. Thank you, Wake. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that if you do continue to support the podcast, I really do appreciate it. And if you guys want to go ahead and, self-plug here, hit the like button if you're on YouTube, and hit subscribe, and hit follow. It seriously means a lot. It actually means that I can go ahead and grow this to something that can be bigger and bigger, and perhaps even make this something that I can work on full-time. I would absolutely love to work on this podcast full-time. And as a reward for listening to the middle bit of the podcast, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. How about a little bit of a preview? I have got somebody who is a bit of a musician, and they are an excellent person that I've talked with, and we ended up becoming pretty decent friends. Their name is Nia, and from there, I'll let you guess who it is that they are. All right, Thank you so much for listening to the middle bit, and let's get back into the proper episode.
Yeah. But first, I'm gonna come back to this like idea of like singing and like why I don't promote my channel much on my
Okay.
Facebook. Sorry, I just had another thought about that.
Oh no, you're so
I
fine.
also realized that like of all the different sort of arts that I do, singing is the one I do the most for myself. And my YouTube channel is also a way of like holding myself kind of accountable for that. That if I like, it makes me like finish projects that like before I really committed to this channel, I used to like be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start like a YouTube cover channel and I'm gonna sing songs, and then I always would get in my own head and really freak myself out. And so now that I've started doing it, I kind of like continue to force myself to do it, because at the end of the day, that's not something I do for a wider audience. It's just something I do so that I have it completed. It's just like, it's like a blog, it's like a public journal of like my musical growth, I guess. So there's that. Yeah.
Okay. No, I can totally go ahead and see that, and like I could definitely tell that you've grown as an artist in multiple different facets, and wanting to go ahead and keep that fresh is very important, especially as you didn't have you didn't have the chance to go ahead and grow it further because of you choosing acting and no longer being able to choose like doing private lessons. Have you considered going back to do more, or do you think like singing is going to be the thing that I do to do something for myself rather than do it simply just for professional reasons, or do you think those two can mix? Well, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. So I do eventually want to find like a mix of the two. I think there are so many prominent like cover artists on YouTube who are also voice actors and vice versa. Right now, I'm considering taking up singing lessons again when I'm less busy with school, and when I have a bit more financial stability to do that, because like I do want to pay like a singing teacher fairly. So yeah, that's kind of where it is with that. Like I would love to take lessons again and continue to like hone my instrument. And I think that so many of the skills you learn as a singer are so important to voice acting and vice versa. Yeah, and I would love to do it more. It's just like not feasible for me right now.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense, especially with you wanting to go ahead and grow your passion up and up, and having it be as varied as you have it at the moment. It is something that I'm a little I don't want to go ahead and say jealous, but I'm proud of like how well you can do in all these different assets in which you've like you can spread yourself out in terms of like doing cosplay or acting or voice acting or singing, and how you can make them all work together and how they're all interconnected in a very sort of like in a very sort of different way. Like for instance, putting yourself into a character's mindset, and while you sing, putting yourself in the character's mindset while you physically bring that to the forefront in terms of acting, as well as bring that sort of character only within your voice, and bring the power through your voice only, without having the ability to show it off. Excuse me, without having the ability to show it off through your through your facial features, or like through your arms and the way you move in voice acting. Like there's a lot that you have in there, and it takes a lot of skill to go ahead and bring those things up to the table. And I'm glad that you've been able to go ahead and do that so far, because I must say that you are currently killing it in nearly every department. But there's one department I haven't talked about yet, which is your cosplay, which I love every time I see it. How did you get into cosplaying?
I think again it was Homestuck. I think
Perfect.
again like
Perfect.
another like
Yes.
it was so easy to like, I bought a t-shirt, I bought a gray shirt, painted myself gray with like paint from Walmart. I already had black hair. I'm like, bam, I'm Vriska. I had really tacky glasses then. Yeah, that was it. And like I did really like it. And yeah, I feel like cosplay is one of my like arts passions that has really like kind of taken the back burner in the past couple of years. I do it when I can, but it's like, yeah, I think again, it's one of those things that's very, I love to perform characters, and just getting to dress up as them and like move around a space as them is so much fun. Like, yeah, I do it for myself. That's another thing I really do for myself, and I just really love it. I don't make most of my cosplays. I think I've made like one or two, and those are like, I'm like, well, I made that, and I guess it's okay. I definitely buy a lot of cosplays more than anything else, but like, yeah, I love to wear cool clothes. I've always been really interested in fashion, and so I love to see a character's outfit or like a character that I would love to bring to life and be like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bring them to life somehow. Mm-hmm. And finding how to do that with my very limited crafting skills. Yeah. And I guess like that also kind of comes into some other, I do a little bit of work as like a model. So like finding that as well, like learning how to pose and all of that has really helped in that. And so it's another one of those things that's like, this really aligns with the kind of things I'm trying to do as like an actor and a performer, that it is also very fun that I can make into a hobby.
No, I definitely see the modeling experience. It comes out very far forward, especially in some of the poses that you do in terms of cosplay. And I must say that you I've noticed like a couple of your photos that you've done with where's it at, your specifically like your where's it at, the Libra Witch cosplay. It looks to be more of like a professional modeling shoot than it is of like you're cosplaying as a character.
Yeah,
and I could definitely see
that actually was a modeling gig more than it was a costume. A photographer in my hometown, Mystical Breeze Photography, is doing a series based on the Zodiac, and she wanted to do witches inspired by the Zodiac. And she asked me to do Libra, and so that is all pulled from like costume items or like outfits that I have in my home. Like, so I own every piece of that. That's just clothes I happen to own, and I was like, bam, now I'm a witch. And so yeah, she's a fantastic photographer, and working with her was such a delight. And I love, she goes back and she re-edits them once in a while and sends them to me again, and I'm like, oh, they're still so good. Every time they get better.
No, I could definitely see that your I could definitely see the modeling experience, and that adding to that, like, it just shows how multifaceted and multi-talented you are in like these various different things, and it all grew out from this sort of like passion that started out with you enjoying things in more of a nerdier centric, and finding these different passions and like having them all branch out. And you've been somebody who has like casted a wide net on a lot of things, and I'm guessing that has like eaten up a lot of your time, as you've said.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate to hear that it's eaten up a lot of your time, but it shows that you're working hard, and you have been working hard, and I don't think anyone can ever doubt that you are not someone who works hard in this industry, whatever that industry may be.
Yeah. I guess like a quote that a classmate of mine said just came to mind, that like, I never feel more self-actualized than when I'm pretending to be other people. And I think that's just like, that just applies to my whole life. Like, that's why I cosplay, that's why I voice act, that's why I act, that's why I sing, is like, I just love to get into someone else's head and try to figure out how someone else sees the world. Yeah.
It definitely makes sense. I can see why having especially like you know at what parts of yours at times in which you are like putting on a front for like other people, and like acting can really help with like pushing forward, like, this is I'm acting like this because of the character, but how much of it is how I feel about it truly, and how much of it is like not all how I feel. And it's taking that sort of like mental note of like, the actions that I'm doing currently do not align with how I feel, or they align really similar to how I feel. And that sort of like head check that you do is one of the things that like is very important to like realizing yourself as a whole. But that's just me listening to philosophy podcasts too much and just spitting out garbage from there.
I do really feel that like, when I play characters, I try to find at least one element of them that I can kind of relate to as a person, and that's sort of my way into the rest of their head. Like, I was playing a character a little while ago, and I just like, I couldn't figure her out. And then I realized that like, her main issue was that she was feeling a lot of pressure. And so like, from outside forces to be someone that she wasn't. And she had like really internalized that and was in a way like pushing that onto other people. And like, that's something that has been part of my past. And I'm like, yes. And it helped, like, everything suddenly clicked about why this character was saying all of the things she was saying and doing all the things she was doing. So yeah, like, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. It's that like our characters are different from us, but like they're also so similar to us that like there's always something in a fictional character that you can relate to, and you just have to find what it is.
It comes down to finding it comes down to finding like a trait that you can not only align with, that like a lot of humans can, just in general,
Mhm.
of like
Yeah.
if you can go ahead and see something within it that's a good character, you can like
Mhm.
you can relate to something about it, not because like you agree with everything that they do, but because you like
Mhm.
see a part of you that is like in one specific aspect, you can really relate to it. And I think that it is just like one of the it's something that's like very important in terms of like connecting yourself to a passionate in sort of any passion project whatsoever.
Mhm.
And I could definitely go ahead and see that with you, of putting a lot of putting a lot of time, a lot of effort into each and every single thing you do.
Yeah.
um but I want to go ahead and discuss a little bit more about yourself. We've talked a lot about your work.
Mhm.
For the people at home, why don't you go ahead and tell them a little bit about who you are, and as much as you want to go ahead and discuss.
Yeah. So, uh, my bio. I am originally from the southern United States. I was born in North Carolina, but I spent most of my childhood living in Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee specifically. And so, like, I'm also a woman of color. I'm of Indian descent. My family is all from Punjab, which is northern India.
Hmm.
And so, like, a lot of my like life has been influenced by the fact that I'm a brown woman who grew up in uh, Tennessee.
Hmm.
So like I've definitely had like struggles as an artist to be cast in things or to find support for my art because of my racial background. But and that's definitely like improved since I moved to Canada, but like it's still like sometimes an issue. Um so there's that. I went to a university for 3 years and I majored in sociology there. Now I'm majoring in acting. I love to do things when I'm not pretending to be other people. I am a big old fandom nerd. It just now I'm like looking around my room and it's like all covered in like prints and anime figurines and like books that
Hmm.
like I'm definitely like a fandom child through and through. And yeah, I love to see other people's stories and connect to them and recreate them. And I think that's brought me to where I am today. Yeah, I don't know.
No, no,
From like from
it's
the kid I've gone from like the kid who like didn't have any friends in school because I was busy reading Harry Potter again for the 15th time that year to like here I am putting on plays and like making movies, I guess.
yeah. No, yeah, that
Yeah.
that's all very impressive to come from like a place of and it came from a you came from a place where you didn't feel as accepted, and you've moved to
Mhm.
some place that's a little bit more, but you still made it all work
Mhm.
on you still made it all work on your own, and you're incredibly like you're one of the most powerful like one of the most powerful women I've like met just in
Oh my
general,
god.
because of just because of like the things that you face, the people that you've met, the opportunities that you've given, and the hard work that you've dedicated to yourself is like very inspiring, I must say. Like I'm not lying in that regard. Like of course I could go ahead and like count off people who are like famous or whatever, and quote unquote like I only know a little bit about that, but like you have been like you're honestly very inspiring, and I hope you recognize that for like a lot of different
um I feel like you could
creators.
probably say that better than a lot of people because you definitely saw me in like my most cringy days. Like you were there when I was like a homestuck kid talking in like leets, making Facebook posts in leet speak about how I was mad at my boyfriend that day. Like you've
Ugh,
seen the worst of it,
I,
so
I can definitely say like, here's the thing, I probably saw that, but like from how much you've like gone forward and improved and grown, I could definitely say that like that's not how I see you anymore. Definitely see you as a strong, as a very strong woman who has gotten like so far in her field, and I can definitely see going even further in like any number of different fields, and I definitely can go ahead and see you like targeting one specific one and pushing your way through all that, and then from there like branching out to different things inside of that. Or I can see you like being multifaceted in these in every sort of different way, and like growing a moderate amount of success in each of those things and becoming like a jack of all trades in that regard. I can see you doing either, and like that's not something that I can go ahead and say about a lot of people. Just in general, I can see that both you going down both paths.
Yeah, I guess right now people keep asking me like what I'm gonna do after I graduate, and I'm always like, "Ah." But I guess like the answer that I tend to give is that I am trying everything right now, and eventually like something will stick, and I'll get like a more clear career path that'll just like, because I've been trying everything so much, it'll be like, yes, this is where it's gonna actually be profitable, and then I will pursue that. And like I found so much passion for all of the forms that I'm doing, and I'd love to continue them going forward. But like having one as like a nice, stable day-to-day job would be nice. But I guess one of the things about working as an actor is you'll never quite get that stability. So you have to be as good as at as many things as you can, so that you can always have at least something coming up.
Exactly. I can definitely I can definitely agree with that. And that comes along with like, especially with your online presence, having a having yourself be a you're very independent in the online field, especially like a lot of people are, of like you have to go ahead and like make money in a different way compared to like continuously going to like a job at a certain time frame, and being able to turn that into something that you can work on full time is really difficult. And a lot of people consider it to be like, a lot of people consider it to be either a pipe dream or something along those lines, just like something that's far fetched out of the way. But I definitely see you making that work. Not only with a ton of the work you do not only with a ton of work you do online, but definitely that work that you do IRL. I mean, working on plays, and being a playwright, and being an actress and working on sets. Like you have a lot of experience. You have a lot of experience there, and I could definitely see that coming forward. And I definitely think that you're going to be able to make it in that regard, no matter what you do. And you branching of those talents is always going to help you out in nearly everything that you do. So.
Yeah. And
No,
I
you're
guess
good.
one thing I kind of want to say is, as much as it is about like being strong independently, I also, so much of the value I take from being an artist is like community, that
Mm-hmm.
like finding connections and like finding people who are hosting projects, and like who are casting, and like even making friends with other actors who are sometimes like, hey, I saw this casting call, and like I thought you might be a good fit for the role. Like finding your community and your niche within any artistic community is so important. Like I have my cosplay friends, I've got theater friends here that we're always helping each other and supporting each other. And eventually, yes, you and your friends will compete for roles, but once you've made those solid friends, then like there's this mentality of like, if I can't be cast for this, I want you to be cast for that. And that's just the most healthy, like delightful thing about acting for me, is like those people that are like that. I don't know, like that's just something I'm thinking of, that like I am an independent creator, but so much of where I am now is because people have seen what I can do and taken a chance that I can do more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. That collaboration and working with other people is definitely like helpful. My main point and why I was stating it is mostly because of like, at the end of the day, a lot of people can like help bring you things, but you've been actionably putting these things forward. And applying yourself in those things, and that's more of what I mean in that regard. Of course, like
Yeah.
wanting to go ahead and collaborate. Like if you didn't want to go ahead and collaborate, you probably wouldn't be on this podcast. But
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking
yeah.
like this podcast is the perfect example that like we've been in each other's like periphery for so long, and then you
Mm-hmm.
asked me to do this, and I was like, yes, of course, absolutely, because I knew that like you are also a creator in this field, and you're someone that I would love to like collaborate and work with, and here is this first opportunity, and hopefully this will do some good for both of us. Yay.
I fully believe that this whole idea for a little bit behind the curtain, this whole idea for the podcast was basically like, I have been a consumer of content for quite a while, of different people's art or all their different creative outlets, I've always been a consumer. And then I realized that like I think that I have the ability to go ahead and like I have the ability of being somebody who's worked in audio production to make something that can help highlight the things that I've always loved and enjoyed and the things I do love and enjoy and bring a wider audience and a brighter light to those people. Especially like whether it be like smaller creators or bigger creators if they wanted to go ahead and work with me. I've always wanted to be like I've always wanted to go ahead and like use the power of like a audience to be a highlight to different people, and so I definitely think that like I've always wanted to go ahead and do that, and you being one of them has been one of the people I've been thinking on the top of my mind, like, ooh, I don't know, like she's always been like she's always like really busy, and like if you want me to be fully real with you, you were like the second person I asked.
Oh
But
my
you were
gosh.
but you were like really busy, so I couldn't like get it out on time. And when you stated that night, no, wait a minute, no, I pitched it to you first. I gave you the idea of yeah, you were the first person I pitched to.
Mhm.
Because of everybody else I asked after I had this idea that I had in my head of like, I want to make a podcast, but I don't know who to go ahead and ask. And I'm like, well, I've got this like really cool voice actress who I've like known for a while on Facebook. We added each other a while back, and I might as well go ahead and like send her a shot or something. And then I realized like that after things didn't end up working out, like you've literally like me pushing that forward gave me like the confidence to go ahead and bring this like whole show to you, like to where it is right now, where I'm getting the first episode out on the 29th, and I am getting everything started, and you're like now you're one of like a guest in like the later times. So hopefully
Wow.
what that means is that I can like give you even more value of like people who can go ahead and listen rather than it being like rather than
Here's
you
the
being like
first
that.
episode of my podcast.
Yeah. you,
Thanks for listening, Mom. No offense to the first episode, but that's always how it is, right? You start with a small
yeah.
audience and you just grow it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that like I'm hoping that I can make it so that way like it's no small thing that you were the first person that I pitched to for this show, and it's a little unfortunate that you weren't one of the first people I was able to get on, but I'm happy that I get to go ahead and like finally get the chance to go ahead and interview you now, and see how far this whole thing has come, and hopefully I
Mhm.
can provide with you like this great boon, and like people to go ahead and just follow you. Speaking of, please follow her right now on Twitter at Misha's Voice, Mishas Voice, all one word. Go ahead and follow her on Twitter. Do you side note? Do you want to go ahead and like do the Instagram right now?
Yeah, you can also follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Succubi Queen, SuccubiQueen.
Uh,
I don't post on there very often because I don't take a lot of pictures of myself, and also
me
Instagram is
too.
not user friendly because I'm a very PC oriented person, and I'm like, oh, none of my cool photos are on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I post on there occasionally. You'll probably see more of my modeling work on there and more of my cosplay work on there. I keep a lot of my things very separate. Like it's like politics on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
uh, voice acting and singing on Twitter, modeling and cosplay on Instagram. So all the places.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also I want to go ahead and shout out as well your YouTube.
Oh,
That is just look up Misha's Voice with a little apostrophe, Misha's Voice. And
yeah.
you should go ahead and be able to go ahead and find her.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
my voice.
yeah, it's your voice and it is beautiful. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to go ahead and discuss for a little bit? Because we've got a little bit more time before we started recording.
Yeah. I guess I kind of wanted to come back to this idea that I actually like a great idea for like other artists that I kind of want to share. One thing that I was encouraged to do in my program is to keep a journal of like artistic thoughts that I'm having. Like I think I had to do it for class at first, but now I do it as like self-practice. Like I think once I had 3 journal entries about like names and why we choose them, that like as if you want to be a creator, you always kind of have to be thinking about things, and it's so helpful to just like put your thoughts down on paper. Like right now my big thought is on adaptation of art and how the Cats movie was doomed to fail from the beginning. That like every time someone creates something, they choose the medium because it can do something specific for them, and that's why a movie adaptation of a book will never be what you want it to be, or that's why like the anime will always miss something from the manga that you loved, that like they chose to make this in this format the first time for a reason. So that's a thing, that like consider like what kind of art you're putting out there, because every form of art has its own unique, beautiful things. That like there are things that I do in film that I could never do in voice acting, and that's like really cool. I don't know. I love art. Yeah. I love acting. I love pretending to be other people.
And might I say, you do it well.
Thank you. I'm so good at pretending to be other people. Sometimes I don't even know who I am myself.
That's gonna be an issue. But anyway, I want to go ahead and say once again, thank you so much, and I really do appreciate you coming out. And yeah, I'm thankful I got to go ahead and get a chance to go ahead and talk and finally have this interview with you as the first person I've wanted to have on for a while. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so nice. Yeah. I had a lot of fun. I'm so excited to hear the rest of the episodes and like follow your podcast.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and let it play the outro. Take care.
All right, sweet.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Commissions Open. If you would, please follow the podcast wherever you get it. I really would appreciate it. Whether it be on YouTube, you can go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button. That's great. Whether it be on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, please go ahead and follow it and let me know. If you also want to go ahead and follow all my links, right there, you can go ahead and follow me on different social media platforms. A majority of them are at Comms Open Podcast. And from there, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. There's just a lot of places you can go ahead and follow the podcast, and I would really appreciate if you to do that. I want to say thank you once again to Misha. You can go ahead and follow them at Misha's Voice on Twitter and at SuccubiQueen on Instagram. They do cosplay, they do singing, they do voice acting. They're just an absolute joy to have on. I want to go ahead and say thank you once again to the lovely artist who made this, made the character set at Doida, the person who does the wonderful promotions for the podcast, the promo artist, Andromeda _ Snow, and the person who made this wonderful icon for the podcast at Mellowscav. I just want to go ahead and say thank you once again for listening to this episode of the podcast. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.